This conference will now be recorded.
Great, thank you. Welcome everyone to the April 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors, our Earth Day meeting this year. As was just noted, we are recording this meeting for posterity's sake. I will introduce the folks I see here with us today. We have Supervisors Betsy DeVreda, Helen Wheatley, Doug Rushton. Supervisor David Ayal won't be here tonight. He's, I believe, enjoying sunshine in Hawaii at this point. Also with us here, we have our Executive Director, Sarah Moorhead. We have our Legal Counsel, Ben Cushman. We have Staff Member Leah Kellogg. And I also see Jean Fike from the Conservation Commission and Alina Reynolds from the Department of Ecology. So welcome everybody to our meeting. Oh, and one more, Robin Buckingham. Hello, Robin. And RCS is also with us tonight. We will move to our second item on the agenda here, which is the agenda review. Are there any changes to the agenda from either board or staff members? Not hearing any agenda changes, so I will entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Been moved by Helen. Is there a second?
I second it.
Seconded by Betsy. Okay, we shall do a roll call vote here. Helen?
Aye.
Betsy?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. We have approved our agenda. Next item up on the agenda is our consent agenda. I'm using the word agenda a lot there. We have four items on our consent agenda tonight. We have the minutes from the March 2021 board meeting. We have the March 2021 work session minutes. We have the April 2021 financial report. And I will just note on that financial report, there was a lot of good explanatory information this much from staff, because some things that I think we all would have had questions about were very well explained on the front end, so thanks to staff for that. And then finally, the last item here is resolution number 2021-02, the Community Economic Revitalization Board Planning and Grant Application Authorization. So with that, we need a motion to approve our consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Been moved by Betsy. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Helen. Roll call vote on the consent agenda. Betsy?
Aye.
Helen?
Aye.
Helen?
Aye.
Got it. I didn't hear you the first time. Sorry. Doug?
Aye, and I concur with Susan's putting things in place to have oversight on the financial stuff. I think that's a good response.
Yeah.
That's an aye.
And chair also votes aye, so we've now approved our consent agenda. That brings us to item 4, public comment. Do we have anybody from the public with us tonight that wishes to address the board? I don't see anyone, but if so, this is your time. Okay. We have no public comment tonight. We will move on to partner reports. First up here is the State Conservation Commission. Jean is here to give us a report. Hello, Jean.
Hi, thanks for having me. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention. First, as we're probably all tracking, the budget information will become public this weekend, and we're all sort of watching with bated breath. So thank you for your efforts in informing your legislators, and we'll hold a good thought. And we'll probably be pivoting to supplemental budget requests pretty quickly with what might have been left short. So watch for that as well. I want to thank Sarah for asking a really good question. She asked a lot of really good questions. She had asked about something called the NCRA process. This is a process by which grantees can apply for greater than a 10% overhead rate on federal grants. And I think largely a result of her asking the question, there'll be a conservation community call next week with a couple of districts securing that agreement with the federal agency. And thanks to Sarah for asking the question. Speaking of it being good to ask for what you need, there's a process proposed to update and revise the NRI program. This is one of our cost share programs at the Commission. It's sort of our bread and butter, sort of fundamental cost share program. And we've worked with a group of terrific staff to bring forward a proposal to revise that. I wanted to bring it to your attention because the time period to provide comment on those proposed revisions is up at the end of the day tomorrow. So if you are interested in that, I'll attach the information to my follow-up email so you'll have it handy, but you should have also gotten it through GovDelivery. So if you have comments on those proposed revisions, please get them to us tomorrow. That would be great. And then, as you know, we had some budget cuts this year, so we're not in a position to offer end-of-year operating grants as we sometimes do. Sometimes we have a little bit of operating money left, and we put out a call to folks for, buying a computer or some equipment, that kind of thing, with year-end funds. We're going to squeak it in on fumes, I think, this year. It's going to be pretty tight, but we did come up with it just enough to a couple of neat trainings that I wanted to make sure you knew were out there. We were hiring Ray Ledgerwood, who many of you may remember, to come in and do a facilitation training, and there's a training as well on managing multiple projects. So we were able to find enough in the couch cushions to fund those trainings for districts, but sadly not enough for year-end grants. Are there any questions that I might be able to answer?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Right there.
I was having a conversation with Ron Schultz, I think it was last week now, email, and I was just curious if the commission has heard anything about potential budget proviso around Senate Bill 5045, which is the mobile processing and slaughter equipment that the program would have been established with WSDA and USDA working together, and then empowering, the commission to support districts to increase access to livestock. And that bill died the April 11th cutoff date, but I had heard that there might be some conversations around a budget proviso being added to initiate that program. Has there been any more information about that?
I haven't heard anything. In fact, I hadn't heard about the proviso being circulated, so your information is more up to date than my own. Sorry.
I don't know if it was conversations about a potential proviso or if there was something in writing that was started. Thank you. I will find out soon.
Yeah, let me know if you hear. The budget process, the latter stages of it it's always a little bit of a black box, I guess, but this year has apparently been even more of a black box than usual. And so it's just these sort of, people happen to hear from somebody who's in the room kinds of communication. So if you hear anything, please let us know. We'd be really curious. Thanks.
Okay, anything further for Jean? I guess not. Thank you, Jean. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing information with us. That moves us then to the WACD and NACD reports. Doug submitted some information to us in writing. Doug, do you have anything to add to your written reports?
Yes, since I submitted that report, there's been some activity at the WACD. We had a board meeting this past Monday, and there's still no decision on the annual meeting for this year, whether it'll be in person or hybrid or totally virtual. So stay tuned for that. Probably we'll decide in June on that. The second item is the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion committee that's trying to be set up. The WACD is trying to set up. We authorized the executive director to spend up to $10,000 to work on the resolution that was passed last year. and work with the committee that they've got established or are establishing to develop a plan after they get the consultant on board and then populate the committee. That sounds a little screwy, but we want to get the consultant on board to help select the committee membership. And we need to make sure one of the caveats is we need to make sure that all areas of Washington are represented. And a couple of areas didn't have people that volunteered. So the DEI stuff is moving along, and stay tuned on what's going to happen with the annual meeting. And I'm done.
Hey, thanks, Doug. Helen, looks like you have your hand up.
Well, just clarification, are you talking about the regional meeting or the national meeting that is up in the air? Isn't there a regional meeting?
WACD is what I prefaced it
Oh,
with.
WACD. Okay, thank you.
So this would be the
The
annual
NACD
meeting
is
that
summer-
will take place in December.
It's
Okay.
usually right after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, okay, late November, early December, yep. Okay, thanks, Doug. That moves us into Department of Ecology. Elena, hello there. What do you have for us?
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're doing well. The sun came out where I am. I hope you're enjoying the same. I have two updates for you this evening, one of which is to say that we are still successfully coordinating the technical assistance resources available through the district as well as the staff. And my second update is that we have 3 vacancies open for non-point water quality specialists here in our Southwest region. All 3 of them will be able to respond to issues in Thurston County. So you'll have 3 new people to meet soon. That's all.
And when you say soon, do you have a timeline on when we might see those positions filled?
I would guess, my guesstimation would be about 2 months, but given the hiring freeze and everything else going on, plus we were very understaffed at this time, which means it's going to slow everything down. But it is a high priority for us. So honestly, I don't know. My guess is about 2 months.
Okay, thank you. Helen?
Just to clarify, are you saying that 3, that you're the, does that mean that you're the only non-point staff for the Southwest region at this point? Or
I don't
because
know
there
if
were,
you met Anne.
okay, because yeah, so there were, because I thought there were 2 coastal vacancies and then the 2 Puget Sound ones.
Yeah, let me
Okay.
clarify a little bit for you, if I may. So Anne and I and one other person that will be hired will be focusing on watersheds that drain into the Puget Sound. And the other 2 will focus on watersheds that do not drain into the Puget Sound. So, you know, the Chehalis, the Columbia River, and also the coastal watersheds as well. I'm sure I'm skipping others. There's a lot of watersheds.
Yeah.
Does that clear anything up for you?
Yeah, I was just a little confused. I thought maybe Anne had disappeared or something. So that's, thanks.
Yeah, we've been understaffed. Been down 1 person since Anne came on, and then we've had 2 people leave and unable to immediately fill those because of a hiring freeze, a statewide hiring freeze. We had to apply for exemptions for those.
Doug, I saw your hand next.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report, Alina. Appreciate it. I'm looking at the environmental report tracking system numbers, the non-point complaints, and there are 2 in Thurston. I'm wondering, are any of those ag, forestry, or working lands related? And if so, what can we do to help?
One of them has been resolved, and you have already been helpful because staff were able to work with this landowner directly to apply their technical assistance resources, which is fantastic to be able to report. The other is something that is being addressed through us as well as the local health department that we work in tandem with. But thank you for the offer and thank you for asking.
Okay,
Thank
anything
you.
further for Alina? Sounds like not, so thank you so much for your report.
Thank you.
That takes us to our final partner report from NRCS, Robin Buckingham. Hey, Robin.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Happy Earth Day. Good to be back after a couple months away here. I hope the email updates that I've been providing have been working for folks. If you want any more detail in those, let me know. I likely won't be able to attend monthly meetings, but we'll try at least quarterly to drop in and give you a verbal presentation and report back. But we'll otherwise send email updates along. And in way of updates, we can start with Environmental Qualities Incentive Program. Our application cycle is rolling along. All of those applications for 2021 have been pre-approved, that are getting pre-approved. We have 11 here in Thurston County, and that totals almost $400,000 of projects in the county moving forward. And then we had one Pierce County applicant that the Olympia Field Office handled. I think I mentioned in my last update, we have also been staffing up. We've had our own low staffing levels for some time here over on the NRCS side, and our team is just about back up to full strength. So we have been kind of covering multiple counties as a team. So with more folks on board, we should be able to, myself included, focus more on our respective counties, which will be a great thing. Just some snippets about the projects that were funded. One of them will probably partner up with Frogs on the Farm, which is a partner for Fish and Wildlife and TCD partner program for a great project. And then another has been a longtime client of the district. So some good connection and overlap between the work of our two agencies right now. And just on that, I want to say that in the course of new folks requesting site visits and enrolling or applying to our programs, hear a lot about the district's programs, have been referring a lot of folks to you. So it's really good to see a good name for the organization out there and the folks that I'm talking to. Next program up would be the Conservation Stewardship Program. If you remember this program, as opposed to EQIP, which is kind of more of our fix problems that are existing out on the landscape, Conservation Stewardship is more for folks who have already done a fair amount of that work and are looking to just go above and beyond in their conservation measures, and they get a little incentive for doing so. Newer program to the west side, I think, as I've mentioned before, and we've had 2 participants apply this year and a handful of renewals. Traditionally, on this side of the mountains, that program has been mostly focused on forest land, which is great. We've had good representation from forest landholders, but we are also getting some pasture and cropland applications as well in, which I think is great. Just kind of seeing how the program can fit in a variety of different I'm just seeing Sarah's reminder there to mute. A variety of different circumstances throughout the county. So excited about the possibilities for that program. And then I think the last thing that I'll touch on here is just that the TCD, Partners for Fish and Wildlife, and NRCS partnership meetings continue to go on to coordinate some work with mutual clients that have given permission to share information freely among the partners, and already have a handful of good folks, potential projects that, in a variety of ways we could collaborate on. So that's exciting to see. I think that's all I had for this evening. If folks have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have one question, Robin. Now that we have a confirmed Secretary of Agriculture and they're starting to staff up at the top, Are you getting any sort of sense of policy change or emphasis that may be different than where things were a year ago?
Yeah, I think we're, still somewhat new into the, well, Secretary Vilsack has obviously been the secretary before, so that's a little unique. But I think they're still kind of in the phases of communicating that stuff down to the state and area and field level. But yeah, small changes for sure. They've been doing a lot of kind of town hall style meetings with staff in the agency at this point, and kind of gathering our feedback, and I think seeing what getting a temperature on what their priorities should be. So nothing major to report at this point, but I'll be happy to keep that in mind as we go forward.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Doug?
Yeah, in our congressional conversations, one of the things that came up was the Biden administration and Vilsack have both said their priorities are COVID, economics, climate change, and DEI. And then kind of a next tier down is broadband. So we tried to tie all of our stuff into those things to make our points, but those are pretty broad, as Robin said, but I think they're still feeling a bit around, getting used to the terrain, but Vilsack was there before.
Okay, anything further for Robin? Thanks for being here, Robin. And yeah, your written reports are great. It's good to see your face every once in a while, but we appreciate the written reports too when you're not able to join us.
Yeah, happy to keep doing it.
Okay, so we'll move on then to item 6 on our agenda, COVID-19 update. Do you have anything to report to us this month, Sarah?
Nothing other than things that you likely already know, which is that Thurston County still remains in phase 3. 3 counties in Washington State moved back a phase to phase 2, which includes our neighbors north in Pierce County on April 16th. So the new 3-week evaluation period has started. We're in the first week of that. Will be evaluated at the end of that process, and again for potential implementation and another phase. I didn't say that very clearly at all. Will be evaluated at the end of that 3-week process again to see if we can remain in phase 3 as a county, or if any other counties within the state of Washington have hit those thresholds where they'll need to regress back a phase. So right now we're doing good and nothing has changed. You can find all of that information on the state public health website with the county tracker and the evaluation, the 3-week evaluation phases. Does anybody have any questions about that? I hope that was clearer in the end than it was in the beginning. That's all I have for an update today.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any comments or questions here, so thank you. That moves us on to item 7, governance. The only thing under governance tonight is to look at our May work session topic list. If we could get that up on the screen.
Yes, I'll put that up. It's taking a bit of time to load, so bear with me a moment on that. One of the things that, while that's loading, that I wanted to bring to the board's attention in the next couple of months is that our collective bargaining process will begin again for the next collective bargaining agreement. And so we'll need to have some conversation amongst ourselves about representatives on behalf of the district for the collective bargaining team on the employer side. Last time that we went through this process, there were 3 members, myself and 2 board members that represented the district, as well as 3 staff members that went through that process. We met several times, and I would say it took, Betsy, you might remember better than I do, about 20 or so hours of work. This time we won't be building a new thing. We'll be sort of working off of the template that we've already built and talking probably about finer details and things that haven't worked. I am just going to pull up a new Word document for you guys. It's diagnosing and repairing whatever was in the done work session topic list. So I apologize that is not on your screen.
Well, technology sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work. Can everyone see
Anybody
me?
else get email?
There we go. I don't know what that was. Betsy, it seems like it might be coming from you. Can you mute, please? Okay, I think we've got it fixed. Okay, so we don't have the populated list in front of us here, but I do have the paper version that came out in the packet. So I'll just read through that, and Sarah can type it up as we go. We have a soil health program presentation from staff. We will have the minutes review from this meeting, as well as the work session minutes. We will have an update on the Conservation and Education Center. Getting ahead of you here. There we go. COVID-19 update. Item on expanding long-term ag designation. And just by way of brief background on that, because we'll talk about it at the work session, this is coming out of the study that the county is doing on community-driven review of agriculture, and a question that the county commissioners are looking for some input on is whether to expand long-term ag designation, and we have an opportunity to talk about that and weigh in on that prior to the time that the staff makes a presentation to the county commissioners. So we'll come back to that with more context at our work session. Now, the next item that was on our list here was the Executive Director Mid-Year Performance Review. And I'd actually like to suggest that we move that from our work session to our May board meeting, and to do that in an executive session. That has been our standard practice, to have an initial discussion under executive session, and then, of course, not take any action. But if that's okay with the board, we'll put that on the May board meeting as opposed to the May work session meeting. Okay.
And just to clarify that, TJ, my only intent there was just for any supervisors that are newer to that process, just as a check-in for the board that this is something coming up, and so everybody had their ducks in a row for that. But that can happen absolutely in the board meeting. We can remove that.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks for reminding us. That could have been one of those things that slipped past us, so thank you.
Well,
Go
we're
ahead,
in that
Helen.
neighborhood, Sarah, I mean, when you were talking about needing to, the collective bargaining was coming up, were you suggesting that was something that needed to be on this schedule maybe somewhere, like talking about
I would suggest we start talking about that soon. It doesn't necessarily need to be during the May work session, but I would May or June, I think, just to refamiliarize ourselves with that process and what we're doing there, and who has the interest in participating on behalf of the district would be good. And some of that will not be appropriate conversation, for a work session. Some of it, there's a separate bargaining statute that I'm sure Ben has right on the tip of his tongue, that we'll do that in sort of a closed session. It's not an executive session, it's a little bit different, but yeah.
Well,
Okay.
it might be helpful if we added to our either our May work session or our May board meeting that topic, in particular the timeline, so that we all understand the timeline going forward for getting that bargaining process completed.
Oh, yeah, I think that sounds like a great idea. I think probably the May board meeting or possibly the June work session will have more known dates and information from the union folks themselves to be able to populate a timeline.
Okay, great. So let's put it on the May board meeting for an initial discussion, and maybe having more detail in June. But it's a big item. We should start to track it. And then I noticed you've added our updates and announcements and board meeting agenda development. So we have that topic list in front of us now. Is there anything else that anyone sees we should be putting on our May work session topic list?
Well, I do wonder if during the discussion about expanding long-term ag designation, it seems to me that the county was also looking for other advice as well, that they were getting ready to start looking at more programmatic stuff, I think. But it seems like there were other elements that they will be looking at as well. They were definitely looking for something very strong on the long-term ag designation and the parcel size and all that, but it seems like there were other things too. And I went, should we be talking about those other things as well, or wait until we get kind of direction from the county that
I guess that would be my sense, is that the way Jennifer Davis has been approaching this with the Ag Advisory Committee is sort of a step-by-step process. And since we're tracking that on a monthly basis, I think we're well positioned as issues arise to bring it back to this board for consideration and actions that we might want to take. And certainly as that work kind of wraps up over the next couple of months, I think there's a lot of opportunities that we might want to say some things as a board. But probably with having a little bit more concrete proposals or options identified might make it a more useful discussion for us.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering.
Okay, so with that, we have a draft topic list for our May meeting, May work session meeting. Thank you all for that. That then moves us on to board member reports this month. I'll go around here one at a time. Let's see, we'll start with you, Betsy. Do you have anything to report? Oh, we're getting this feedback, Betsy. I would suggest, Betsy, if you have anything to bring up here, maybe put it in the chat box so that we can see it, because we're not working with your audio here, just static. I'll move on then to Doug. Doug, do you have anything?
I feel like making a really loud buzzing sound just to see you guys' reaction. The only thing I had to report is I did have my interview with the commission's two commissioners and the commission staff for the appointed supervisor position, and I was greatly disappointed that Gene wasn't there, but that was fine. Josh is good too. Josh Gianoli was the staff. So the commission decides on May 20th on appointments and election certification.
And that's a good reminder. Once that certification has been made, both for the appointed and the elected position, that at our May board meeting, we will need to consider officers for the coming year.
Yes.
So let's make sure we put that on our May board meeting agenda.
Yep. I made a note of it too.
Thanks, Doug. Helen, do you have anything?
Not much. Just if people are interested in hearing what the TRPC has to say about that buildable lands report, they're going to be talking about that, presenting it at the next steering committee meeting, which is on the 7th, I think, on May 7th in the morning. And then also just to, I put myself on, after our discussion last time, I decided it might be a good idea to just be on the retreat subcommittee, so I put myself on that. So that's all I have to report.
Thanks for taking your role at TRPC seriously. I think that's great that we're back engaged with that organization, so thank you. I don't really have anything to report at this time. We'll be meeting again the first week of May on the Olympia farmland study project that we've been doing, and Sarah will be bringing us some information, bringing the group some information at that May meeting. So I'll have more to say at our work session or the May board meeting. Then that moves us to item 9, the executive director report. Sarah.
Thank you, TJ. Well, I already did one of those items, the collective bargaining update. The second one is after we had some conversation last month around looking at things that the district has been able to easily implement to further sort of our goals around justice, equity, diversity and inclusion. Staff at our most recent staff meeting went through an exercise of starting to really aggregate all of those pieces, all of those transformative pieces and elements that we have already put into place within this last year to look at visually and start to get this list of how we've already started to transform practice and procedure and process, and even our own internal thought processes. And I think that while it's the beginning of this conversation, it was a really good one. And I think that staff are really excited. They've already started to identify other avenues, other even small avenues that are easy for us to, sorry, I was muting again. Easy for us to accomplish in the near future. So we're really excited there. Once we sort of get this internal where we're at now analysis done, we'll be sure to share an update with the board. And just to follow up, I've been following the WACD DEI committee work that Doug was mentioning as well. They were able to get volunteers from all of the regions, I think just as of today, maybe. So I'm looking forward to what those tools are that they create so that we can assess those and see how appropriate they are for TCD and what we can use and glean there. The second update is that if you'll remember, the board approved the RIA 13 Watershed Recreation and Enhancement Committee plan. And so we met as sort of delegates of our respective organizations yesterday, or excuse me, actually that was yesterday. The committee adopted early on at the beginning of this process a consensus-based operating mechanism, which means all of the stakeholders that are formally sitting on the committee have to agree in order for decisions to move forward and pass, including the final adoption of the plan. we had our sort of final culminating vote on the adoption of the plan yesterday, and not all of the stakeholders voted in favor of the plan, which means the plan was not approved. It did not pass. So what does this mean moving forward? I strongly encouraged the committee to continue to look for avenues of synergy, to continue to see if there are concerns that we're able to address before June 30th, to potentially look at any form of resolution on those still existing concerns. And if not, if the committee, now that we've created this really robust group of people from different sectors of our community coming together to have conversation about this issue that affects all of us, if just for the sake of collaboration, if the committee wanted to continue to work on some of these issues, and then submit a plan, even if it is not by the timeline that the legislature has set of June 30th, to Ecology as a reference document in their rulemaking process. So if there is no plan adopted by the committee by June 30th of this year, which has to be unanimously adopted, then it will go straight to Ecology, and Ecology will initiate their rulemaking process to develop the plan for RIA 13. I will also note that our RIA 14, which is the Kennedy-Goldsboro, so it's our Eld, Totten, Inlet, and into Mason County area, also was not adopted under much different circumstances, but was also not adopted. So more to come on that as the next couple of weeks unfold and stakeholders have additional conversation. If there is a path forward for resolution, it is a potential that the Board of Supervisors will see a revised document come before you at either the May or June board meeting. So more to come on that, but it may not be concerns that we're able to address in that time frame. And that is my update.
I have a question for you, Sarah.
Hang on a second. I saw Doug first, then Helen, then Chris.
I wanted to wait to see what Sarah was going to say. Y'all got a copy of the South Sound Business Magazine article on her, I think, which was very, very positive. It was also in the NACD Pacific Region newsletter from, I think, earlier today or maybe yesterday. That's one of the advantages of having someone on the NACD board, is we can get some publicity like that. So congratulations to Sarah on that. Second item is I write some forestry articles for some magazines, and the National Woodland Owners Association has decided that they're willing to do one on the Skookumchuck tour that we had last week. We can tie it into the forestry arena with the oak plantation and the Sitka spruce / Douglas fir / hemlock and the erosion control stuff. So Sarah and Mara are working on that, and I think that's a good stroke for us.
Great, thank you. Helen, you were next, and then Chris.
Yeah, well, I was just, I saw an email from Deschutes Estuary Restoration Team yesterday addressing the RIA 13 situation, and from their perspective, it was the builders, the Building Industry Association, BIAW, I think it's called.
Yeah.
That they were the ones blocking consensus, and it sounded to me like there was no way that they were going to move to consensus, was my sense, which would then put it directly in Ecology's court. Is that the sense that you had, or do you think there's still room for some kind of movement towards consensus? Or is there even a mechanism for, like, how many more times can you meet before that deadline? Is it just is there a meeting in May, or?
Yeah, these are all good questions. We can meet as frequently as we would like to meet. So that's a possibility. That noted, each entity, much like the conservation district, has to bring the plan back to the decision-making body of the organization for approval, and that's the timeline issue piece that we probably will run up against. There are other entities like the Board of County Commissioners that have an even longer approval process than we do. So I do want to comment on that email, because I recognize and understand how that felt for a lot of members on the committee. I think one of the things about consensus-based decision making is it's everybody striving to come together and not striving to pull people to a certain predetermined outcome. So, I think the Building Industry Association of Washington did have some legitimate concerns about regulations on building and on existing landowners and permanent exempt wells. They were willing to compromise on a fair amount of things. Their membership was not in favor of compromising on all things. And just like any sort of stakeholder perspective at the table, that's going to be a true statement. So I think with more time, we probably could have gotten at least a lot closer to consensus, if not consensus. We'll see. I think time is our ultimate challenge in that. So yes, that is true, but there is some context there. They have some concerns, from their seat at the table, and hopefully we can work to resolve them, if not now, into the future. But it is very likely that it will end in Ecology's court, and they will initiate their rulemaking process.
Thanks.
Chris, you were up next.
Thanks, TJ. The PUD was also present for the meeting and voted in the positive. You're right, the BIAW is the only one against it. And I guess other than environmental groups, are they the only non-government entity there? There's dirt there, and usually at these meetings for watersheds, I've never seen any building people before, but I have seen them when they commented on the NUTSAC, and they put in a lot of the public responses to their process. Whenever you leave it to Ecology to do the watershed plan, it usually doesn't get much community feedback to the process once they take it over. They're taking it over because it failed, and they don't really get much feedback. They'll go for a period of time of review, but they don't have to really listen to anything that's said. So I don't think the builders realize that that's what happened in Whatcom County, and that's what will probably happen here.
Well, that was my thought. And so you don't think, Chris, that Ecology is likely to pay a lot of heed to the work that's been done? Then they'll just move ahead and do what they feel.
I think the objections they're making on paper are, stating facts about what positions they're holding that have been overruled by the legislature. So they look at that as not their ball game and move on.
Doug, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I take issue with what Chris just said. As a former rule writer for those WACs for Ecology, Ecology listens to what the people say. They're legally obligated to do that, at least on 2 instances in each rule. and they try to get consensus, as he mentioned. But they'll have public workshops and all that standard type stuff. So it won't be done in a back room, that's for sure, because they'll get sued if they do.
So just so I
And
understand, I don't
the
want to
Building
take
Industry
too much.
Association of Washington, I've worked with them. Can I finish?
Okay. Is there anything further on this topic? I guess to be continued, and there's a chance that if something comes together, we'll have to take a look at it and take action on a revised plan potentially at one of the next 2 meetings. So I know Sarah will keep us updated as we move forward on that. And with that, I think we've concluded Executive Director's report. Is that true, Sarah?
Yes, that is true. I think that Doug might have had one more question. I'm not sure. And Betsy's mic, I think, is working as well. So she may have a supervisor report.
Okay, so let's check that. Doug, did you have anything further to say on that issue from Sarah's report?
No.
Okay, no for
Okay.
Doug. Then Betsy, did you have anything to report under Supervisor's report?
No, thanks. But no, I'm fine. Thank you.
Glad to have your audio back and your video.
Well, I was able to hear everything. I just kind of minimized everything.
Okay, glad it's working for you now. Just in time to adjourn, right?
Oh, I was here the whole time.
So we have come to the point where we will adjourn the meeting if there's a motion to do that.
I so move.
Moved by Betsy. Is there a second?
I second that.
Seconded by Helen. So we will vote on adjournment. Betsy,
Aye.
Helen,
Aye.
Doug,
And I think this is a new personal best for us as far as quickness.
well, it's not over yet. I could drag out the vote here. I haven't voted yet. But I won't do that.
I think I know you well enough to know the outcome.
Chair votes aye on adjournment. So thank you all. We have completed our meeting at 6:22 p.m. Plenty of sunshine left and evening time to enjoy with friends and family. So thank you all, and we will see you at the May work session. Good night.
Thanks, DJ.
Good night.